Well, hello everyone. This is Greg Elson, and I am going to be presenting today my graphic representation of the relationship between formative and summative assessment. Formative and summative assessment, I believe, function a lot like an athletic team training for a championship. So for the IB, this championship is won when you create a more peaceful world through intercultural understanding and respect. Um, to start off with, the success of both teams and students depends on a vision of what you think success looks like. So they must understand what it looks like to be successful in the real world and understand the purpose of practice towards that goal. So both teachers and coaches need to show their students or their teams what success looks like and how to get there. So there's a lot of ways to create this vision of success. Sometimes you can use history, right? So a coach could show a historic example of success in a sport, similar to way norm referencing is used in a test, where you collect the historic data performance on a specific test or assessment. Historic examples can give you an idea of where your team or student is in relation to those other examples, but it doesn't really give you a clear idea of the individual growth of your players and students from where they started. Similarly, you could use criteria to create that vision of success. Sometimes for a player, for example, you could use the criteria of different skills. For example, how long it takes for them to run 40 yards or how far they could throw a football. For students, it might be their ability to add or divide fractions. The IB sort of does this to an extent with their learner profile, where they outline the values and the different indicators that they consider important towards their vision. Now, the vision itself can be communicated in probably an infinite number of ways. Players sometimes watch tape, which would equate with other examples, such as seeing examples of student work in a classroom setting. Another method might be a rubric, which would describe the different levels of success towards that goal. And once you've established the goal, assessment is simply the collection of any evidence of performance related to the goal that you've established. In the world of sport, you can get examples you have from a player or a team performing. It could be a game or drills. In the world of education, any assessment, any evidence of student performance. So it could be a multiple choice or a multiple step problem. The difference between formative and assessment isn't necessarily the type of assessment, but how you use it. So in the IB's assessment booklet for the DP, it states that formative assessment has the most direct link to the way students learn, and it is sometimes called an assessment for learning, while summative assessment is sometimes referred to as an assessment of learning. But I don't think that's quite right, because I would say that learning doesn't stop. So you can't really assess how much somebody has learned because they don't stop learning. The real difference is what you do with the evidence that you gather. So formative assessment is an assessment for change. Any assessment is formative when it gives important feedback to a student and teacher, and then both respond in a specific way for improvement. In the world of sports, it could be athletes and coaches responding to a performance in a game or a drill by identifying areas where improvement is needed, and then they practice those areas. For a student, it could be after a student writes a paper, the teacher and student reflect on the strengths and then set targets for revisions. What defines something as formative? The key is that after the evidence is gathered, the teacher and student have the opportunity to reflect on their success and decide what the next step is moving towards their goal. Summative, on the other hand, is a bit more universal, and it gives you feedback at a specific time. In addition to giving feedback to a student, summative assessment can give teachers, directors, districts, or really whoever is gathering the information a window into where the overall performance is at a time. It can be a record, basically. So it's similar to a team record. Individuals on a team might perform well, but if enough people aren't performing well, then the team suffers. It might lose. It is a measure of the overall effectiveness of the team or program at one time, in addition to the feedback it gives to the individual. Ultimately, the progress of the team isn't what is measured, it is the overall mark of the team, the overall record. So, like we said, ultimately, the difference between formative and summative assessment is the purpose of what you're going to do with that evidence that you gather. Formative is responsive, like we said. Teachers, coaches, they use it to identify and create a plan of improvement. Summative is a measure at a time. So it could be used for things like grades, judging the effectiveness of a teacher or program. Similarly, coaches might see players struggling and use it to restructure their program, or might even change personnel. The key is that it's difficult to really draw a clear distinction because they work together. We teach to change the world. We believe that learning is the key to that change, but learning doesn't stop with us. We are defined in many ways by what we do. It is the evidence of who we are. We never stop determining who we are, and we hope that our students never stop learning, never stop reaching towards those goals. We must teach our students to use the evidence of what they have done to improve.